Okay, where do I begin? I'm gonna close the door. Hold on. It is Wednesday, July 10th, the 2025th year of our Lord Jesus Christ. And I am here to tell you nothing but the honest truth, and every single ear that hears this will accept it. Now understand this. I want no proclamation. There is nothing about me that makes me any different than the listener. I'm just simply a conduit from one place to another. Okay, but let me help you understand what is happening right now. As the time grows further into the future. Now, stop that thought. The past is still currently occurring, but it cannot be changed. You can change small details plausibly, but you cannot change the past. Perhaps, in fact, if you look at a star in space that's already exploded and blown out, right? You can still see it. Well, if I was on that star with a telescope that could see Earth, technically, then I would be able to see the past, right? And if I could reach it, then I could maybe possibly interact with it. But no, I wouldn't. It's not plausible. We don't have that ability. But the future is based on decisions and choices. And God's will is very complex. God stands outside of time within the division of time itself as well. So let me put it this way. Before you decide to make a decision, he's already foreseen the fork in the road that you will come to. He's already foreseen both choices that you might make. So if he must take precautionary steps in case one of your actions is a very evil act on the side of the adversary, then he'll take those actions that are necessary. But let me explain the adversary for 1 minute. The adversary has lived taken its last breath. This is their dying breath. This is their last attempt to overthrow the throne of heaven, which will never occur. I've been a Christian my whole life. Okay? I've lightly studied the enemy. And I know several things. I know, first of all, that to become a satanic priest, you got to become a regular priest too, and you got to break the arms off Jesus when you get baptized as a Satanist and shit. I've gone to church my whole life. I never had to break Satan's face on a statue. You know, we don't concentrate on who we hate. We concentrate on who we love, because that's the weapon. Once you understand there is only one weapon created to beat anything on earth, it will destroy any nation, any man, and at any angle coming at you. It will render them completely helpless to your whatever angle they're attacking you at. It simply is the honest and pure, most truest form of love. Master that, you will begin to understand. Once you begin to understand, you'll begin to comprehend. And once you begin to comprehend and you have understanding and comprehension with wisdom, then knowledge begins to go extinct. Knowledge is the disease we were poisoned with from Adam. Knowledge is what took away our ability to be hand in hand with God right now. Okay? When on the day knowledge dies, belief will rise with a kingdom with it. Believe that. Your belief is your core key and your identical trait to your creator. You started as an idea. Everything that you create began as an idea as well. So everything you've ever made has only been in his image the way he would have made it. Now I have two proposals for you. You have one God from the Old Testamential scriptures. It's very bipolar, very back and forth, untrustworthy of humans, and rightfully so. Testing men like Abraham and Job to limits that I really don't believe that were necessary or that were fundamental to the cause at that time. But with that said, so and David, how David was pardoned for, you know, the mortal sins he had committed. He had committed adultery and then sent his best friend to where the fighting was fiercest and abandoned him to die. You know, David didn't do exactly the greatest things, but you know what he did have, which others didn't? the ability to stand out from the herd. God appreciates those who are willing to take the extra bold step outside the lines of reality and rules and think bigger, think broader, think in a more universal term, in a more universal ideology. When your simplicity is just so closed, you don't grow and you aren't found. You're only noticed when if you're in a crowd of people and someone's on stage and you're at a concert, you think that person on stage is going to happen to actually make eye contact with you. But if you stood up on a 3-foot ladder and got 3 foot above everybody, guess what? They're going to notice you for sure, right? That's exactly how heaven is. If you get out of your comfort zone and you take just 3 little steps up, not even the full staircase, just 3 little steps in your mind, the more higher you raise your frequency in your mind, the deeper you'll find yourself in your soul. It's a mirror image. Everything that's biblical is mirroring itself. Just like the way God tested Abraham to kill his only begotten son. Does that sound familiar to you? And it just like it would come to pass that Jesus would be sacrificed by his dad and be killed, but still lived. Just like Isaac was to be killed, but still lived. Jesus came and kind of broke seals that undid God's wrongdoings. And God's wrongdoings, and what I mean by that, I don't mean to blasphemy. I mean that God was incarnate at that time, so he understood everything. And after the resurrection, of course, he understood the whole picture. Our mistakes, the evil that we create, the evil we cause, the aftermath of it, the ripple effects, all of the details that go into being human that God couldn't see because he was too far away. Just like we have no clue the formality of being a freaking ant. You have no idea the details of what they have to do on a daily basis to survive and feed their colony and whatever. We have no idea. We could study it, but we don't know. We couldn't experience it if we imagined. God came down and experienced it so he could imagine, because he was obviously not doing something right, because his people kept suffering and enduring slavery and being controlled and being overruled. They were never the victor. From the time of David and Solomon, they were begotten amongst time, pretty much, and just wavered as a weak link amongst many nations. But Israel has stood the testimonial time. That's what tells me it's truth. The Bible, we played telephone with that book for 10,000 years from the Genesis. You play telephone with somebody for 5 fucking minutes and they're going to get a different response than what you originated with. Now, we're playing it for 10,000 years, but people are going to try to say the book is not true. We're not going to debate anymore whether or not the book is true. It's not about that. The book is truth. It's whether or not you choose to believe it. Everything in this life is all about choice. You were given free will. First of all, let me remind you too, when you pray, when you manifest things like The Secret, when you want to manifest your reality, make sure you don't just keep it silent in thought. They forget to tell you that you got to say it out loud. You ever heard of witchcraft spells? You ever heard of prayer? You have to say verbally aloud what you want to happen, or it won't. Or you have to take action to make a reaction happen, or nothing will occur. My dad once told me that, if you're standing on a hill and there's a ball, and you want the ball to roll down the hill, you can think in your head as much as you want. I want this ball to roll, roll, roll. But you're never going to master the art of telepathy and move that shit on your own. Unless you've studied the arts of it and know the psychology of it extraordinarily well, which most of us don't. So with that said, take the step and kick the ball. Once you kick the ball, it will begin to snowball. The snowball effect also causes two reactions. One, it sheds off what it no longer needs. Also, it regains what it needs again. So that too is another metaphor to life. But I want to address a couple issues here. Okay, we are moving into a time frame where people are going to start behaving in a very odd manner. Unfortunately, I may believe that we have possibly already faced our judge. And what I mean by that is that in accordance to what God's will is, it's Jesus Christ's entitlement as the Son of God who died for us. It's his choice to forgive or not. It's not about our sin. It's not about how much we've sinned. It's not about what our sins are. It's about whether or not he is willing to forgive us based on our desire to be forgiven. I promise you that. I will bet you my soul on that. That if you desire forgiveness, no matter where you originate from, no matter what God you have served throughout this physical formation of life, Jesus Christ will love you eternally if you just seek his love. That's all you have to do is want it. That's the key. There's always this universe that has rules. It has little tweaks that you have to abide by, or things won't happen. Like, for instance, you can't receive without giving. If you give or you receive without giving, you'll be taken from. Okay? Or if you give without receiving, best believe you will receive without having to give. Everything, nothing in this world is free. But when you give up something that you love, like I used to be a really hardcore thief, right? I've been through a lot of shit. And we're not going to get into that, but I'll just let you take a look at my hands on the scars and you can go from there. I used to be a pretty serious thief. And no matter what I stole, I would go home and I would take something that I seriously, I take a bunch of shit that I didn't want anymore. But most of all, I would take one or two things that I fucking loved and I donate it. It wasn't about the donation. It was about the sacrifice of something that I cared about. Now, I'm not telling you to go sacrifice your kids. No, that's fallen angel shit. That's demonic shit. My opinion is that every fallen angel on earth can be found in text just according to Egypt's history, Greek's history, India's history. All of these deities, all of these people claiming to be gods have this exact same traits of the others. They all claim to be deities, the ever knowing and everlasting. They've all tried to open the gates of heaven. They've failed. They've all tried and fought amongst each other. They've all been found to be larger than us humans, and they've all found to breed with us humans. And they all claim to be godlike, which they aren't. Their sole goal is actually to be more like you. That's why possession occurs mostly with demons, because they want to experience being a human. They're so jealous of you, you have no idea. Angels were made in the absolute truth. In the absolute, no decision is amongst an angel. No choice. It is absolute. It fears nothing. It only brings. They're not as fierce and scary as you would imagine. The archangels. They're more comfort bringing. They bring you comfort in times of struggle to guide you through darkness. But best believe they do stand at the four corners of the world, and I do believe that's why we don't see more UFOs. It's probably most likely because it's from archangelic intervention. And to be honest, while we're on the topic, because I'm going out there, if I'm going to go in, I'm going to go all in. I have never seen a UFO ascend into the atmosphere, nor rather have I seen it descend, then take off into a flight pattern. I have only seen UAPs or UFOs fly in a horizontal pattern or a zigzag pattern across of our sky. Across, that's keyword, across, which indicates the most logical conclusion is that they're not traveling from an outer dimension. The void of space is nothing. I don't know if the earth is round or flat. I kind of think it's both. I think possibly it gives off an illusion that it's three-dimensional based on our three-dimensional intake from our retinal process in our eyes. But it's like an astral projection, astrophysical. It's an actual flat plane, but it's leveled and you can't see the dimensions because you can only see in three-dimensional time. So when you see it outside of itself, you see a circle and a sphere. That's why in telescopes you see the planets the way they look, because you're seeing them from outside of where they are. Now, if you were within them, then you wouldn't understand the concept of it, because you're not within their illusion. You are outside of the illusion. So I think both parties may have a point, but that's the point here, is that neutrality can be very key. And now, I remain neutral in life amongst everything but with my God. I will stand in my God's corner, and I will stand in my God's name amongst all things. I don't care about the humiliation and the degradation that comes with it. I don't give a shit. We're past that point. I'm all in. And I won't tell my story because it doesn't matter. I'm nobody in the world. world. I'm a voice in the darkness proclaiming the way of the word of the Lord. Okay? If I can be anything like just a shadow of one of the greatest disciples that ever lived, Paul or John, then and lead you to believe into pure truth and you've been told, then my mission was completed, because I was born, conceived, and I believe that my mission on this planet is to tell you the things that you weren't told, weren't necessarily lied to about, but if learned and understood, you would have a bigger understanding for the larger ideology of religion. Your faith would only strengthen. Understand this. Also, if you have never seen proof of God, that doesn't make him non-existent. It makes you more even special. Because to those who have not seen proof of the divine, some people have. Some people have experienced angels and afterlife experiences. I personally have overdosed over 15 times. I've never recalled an incident. I have had endocarditis, an infection of my heart. I've had a femoral artery aneurysm and a spinal infection that caused me to go blind. And I lived through all of it. Okay, not to mention I have had 5 children, all of which I've lost custody to, with my parental rights included being terminated. So I've been through a little bit, but I've always believed that God had an end game. I've always believed from the beginning God had an end game. Even before I lost my child, my firstborn, I believed there was an end game to the beginning. I didn't know what it was. I knew she'd be pursued. And I won't get into, I'm not going to divulge one word of information regarding my children, but I'll tell you this. This person who's risen out of the East claims to be the successor of St. Peter and Jesus Christ. Yes? He's not, because I know who is. And when they come, they will not claim to be the successor of Jesus Christ or Simon Peter. They won't have to. You will know. But understand this. When Jesus arrived, what he preached was so unorthodox and not understood by anyone in the church that he was killed for it. Let me say it again. His preaching was so bizarre to their normalcy, he was murdered in the name of it. Now, as it was, so too will it be again. When he comes, and he comes again, you will not recognize this person. He will be very, very unfamiliar, and he will tell you things that are very, very, very dramatically different than what you think it to be. But trust that what you don't know is usually the truth, because nothing on this earth is what it seems. And when I say nothing on this earth is what it seems, I mean nothing on this planet is what you believe it to be. Destroy your belief for what you think you know, and allow one person, one stranger, is a voice in the middle of oblivion, to guide you closer to the relationship you may be able to begin to have with the truest form of God. And that is, the beginning point of that starts within yourself. You will never find God any farther than your own heart. God has never left you. You have never been alone. He loves you more than you can love your own children. He has a plan that's destined for you and designed, even if that's being killed in a car crash. That ripple effect from that car crash will go on to spare and separate and ultimately be a greater cause for goodness than you could ever conceive. But that's not your point to know. Your point to know is just your own and those who around you and those whom you love. And do your best to behave in the image of Christ. And if you sin, repent and you will be forgiven. And yes, church is holy. And I was raised Catholic, and I do believe still in the Catholic Church, although I do believe it's holiest when it's empty. But what better way, about a decade ago, about a century ago, Pope Leo XIII was having Mass, and his face went white, and he was silent for about 13 minutes, I think it was. When he came to, he told the public what he had heard. He heard a conversation between Satan and Jesus' throne. Satan said to Jesus, Jesus said, well, first of all, he said, why are you here? And then the devil said, because I guarantee you I can destroy your church if you give me the resources. And Jesus says, well, what do you need? And he said, I need 100 years, more men that I can plant inside your church, and I need There was one more thing he asked, but Jesus gave it all to him. Jesus said, take it, go for it. You won't destroy the church. But what better angle I can't conceive in my mind than to take out the universal church. Catholic means universal. That's all Catholic means. It was the first church developed on earth to teach the teachings of Christ. Now, you can call them conspiracy theorists. You can call them the Illuminati. But truly, to be honest, they're just the origin of an old religion. And they're trying to keep it alive when others have branched out and tried to change it and alter it and make it bend it to their will and their own accord, based on basically money. And I'm not saying that they're not doing the same thing. I'm just saying that they were the first church. They're the truest church. And I've been to the Vatican. I saw Pope John Paul himself, who personally I believe him and Mother Teresa were in duality the last two good souls to ever exist on this planet. The last two saints, the true saints. Because saints aren't remembered. The canonized saints aren't the saints you want to talk to. And don't ever pray to an angel or a saint on both knees. Only get on both knees for our God, the Son, the Holy Spirit, or the Mother. I've been instructed by a higher intelligence that you are to take one knee when praying to an archangel, and one arm is to be held behind the back as your head is bowed. And in this same format, you would also not pray, but you would speak upon and call upon a saint for assistance, but you do not pray to them. Building statues in their name is not right, and I do not believe and agree with that part of the Catholic Church. However, I do believe in the consumption of the body and the blood. I believe in the confession of your sins. There is something about public degradation that builds a strength inside of you that it's hard to explain. It's like a spiritual cleansing, but it's like the higher that you're humiliated, the cleaner you come out on top. We see this with predictive programming on television. We see this in the Illuminati rituals that include public humiliation acts. We see this a lot because it's when you see a pattern develop that's got a similarity to it. Understand this. It's not an accident or coincidence. You're witnessing something that there is truth, but it's maybe hidden very, very deeply embedded within what's happening. But if you can identify that pattern, then you can just carve away at that until you get to the core of what you're seeking, and you see what it is, and then you go to the next thing that you notice the pattern in, and the next one, and the next one, and you'll find the similarity and the correlating factors between each one. That's when things start to really open up. For instance, these elite that have been taking children for a long time and drinking adrenochrome, all those things are occurring. They are. And I said the same thing. How can we exist in a world where this occurs? Well, if the wicked weren't wicked, Christ couldn't forgive, number one. Number two, unfortunately, if you love and serve God like I do, you will look those same humans who murdered those children. And yeah, I'm saying it. I'm going to have to look the people that took my kids in the eye, and instead of murdering their fucking soul and descending them into Satan's domain, if I truly love my Lord, I'm going to have to look at them and look back at my Father and say, Father, if you find it within your will to forgive them, I will live amongst them in peace and in paradise. And that is as well as if you can find it in your will to forgive me. We have no place to judge each other in accordance to our sins. Jesus Christ himself said and drew the line at this point. He who is without sin, let him cast the first stone to kill. And you know what? That has forever resonated amongst all of us. Only now do we use execution as a punishment. And even now, that's pretty extreme, I gotta say. It's funny, like child molestation continues and serial killing continues, but capital punishment like kills, but they catch him and they keep him on death row for like 25 years before they even get to the point where they might kill him. The whole process is really just all about money. Once you uncover the truth about one thing, you start uncovering the truth about another thing and another thing and another thing. And what you soon realize is that everything is simply money. Now, like I said before, I'm not sure if the world's round or if it's fucking flat or whatever the fuck, but I believe that it may be both. I believe that both sides may be correct. That's just my gut assumption based on the things I've witnessed and I've learned by research. And also, I do believe that, okay, where do I do that? I do believe that space travel is not plausible. The void of space is emptiness. What you're seeing in that darkness is nothing. That's what darkness is. Darkness is nothing. That you can't exist within an everlasting darkness with distant speckles of light just sprinkled about wherever. I think the only way to travel space is through wormholes and through portals, stargates. That's why you see UFOs traveling this way, going through interdimensional space, 3-dimensional time travel, 4-dimensional, 5th-dimensional time travel, interdimensional. I don't know. Somehow they go from a celestial physical state to from a corporeal physical state to a celestial state in seconds. They're disappearing, right? We see these qualities in Bigfoot. Why? We see these qualities in fairies. Why? We see these qualities in all these things that are mythological. But why? Why are they mythological? Why do they have the properties to just simply disappear? Well, because I believe that before the flood, beings were on the earth that God may have not cared about. They weren't a threat to humanity, but they radiated a different electromagnetic energy field. For instance, I believe the kingdom of heaven itself is run. So it's stated in the Bible that David forged God's nation on earth, including everything from the census to the hierarchy of his army. And that's where we find the ranking angels and whatnot. Now, different religions believe different contexts and like interpretations of this, but overall, this is the message that I received from what I understood of it. And by saying he forged God's nation on earth, it means that God's nation in heaven must be an organizing, running environment, meaning that it's not just a place of eternal paradise where nothing's questioned or nothing's kept updated. It's a place that has constant updating, constant government intervention, constant. They probably separate your souls individually, and each soul generates its own heaven, so to speak, and you're placed in a eternal just state of bliss forever, where you desire to be. You may be given the choice to reincarnate and live life again. You may not. I don't know. That's beyond my pay grade. I'm not sure, and I'm not willing to ask those questions because it doesn't matter in this one. Does it matter to us now if we live again? No. Does it matter if we live after death? Yes. Does it matter if there's rules to getting into the afterlife based on how we live now to get into that life after death? Yes. That's why it's important. That's what separates it from the others, is because your actions here will make your actions, when judged, very, very, very dramatically different. But keep in mind, it's not up to your sins. It's not up to your transgressions, no matter how disgusting they may appear. If Christ denies one man born after him, or his death rather, resurrection, if one soul was rejected from paradise, then every single act that he ever took and every drop of his blood was done in vain, because he can save anything, including the devil. And yes, I believe the devil one day will be given salvation, but the key is, like I said before, you have to want it, and he just doesn't want it. Sooner or later, he will retire his hatred towards the hierarchy of heaven. The love that would turn to abandonment will return. He was created in equality to the archangels, similar to the archangels at least. I mean, I see Michael to be almost just as superior, if not just as equal, or if not superior to Lucifer, despite claims of Lucifer being the first creation of God, which is not true. Metatron was the first angel to take dictation down when Genesis was created. Metatron was the word of God, who was the scribe of God, and he was more like the most powerful thing you could ever imagine. He was kind of like Megatron, but not evil. He was like God, but an angel. And he's been portrayed in science fiction and shit, and they've never done it accurately. Metatron was actually very, very absolutely fierce and scary angel. That angel was scary. Just like Lucifer was a very specific being. I believe when God arrived in this universe, or when God created life in this universe, he had a very difficult time undertaking the achievement of bringing light upon the darkness, because darkness is somewhat intelligent. And you bring in so much darkness, when you get it so dark that you cannot even see your hands in front of your face. Imagine how dark it would have been if you were in the middle of space-time with no source of any light whatsoever, and you had to somehow generate one, move a star, or move however it happened. Lucifer was that force. Lucifer was that one who brought the ability of creation to begin. He was the actually helping hand of God to help us get to this point. This is what I've been led to believe, at least. And I know that Lucifer is Satan. I don't worship Lucifer or have any sympathy for him. In fact, prior to me feeling the Holy Spirit for a year, I'm talking 365 exact days, I heard the voice of Lucifer in my mind after being revealed heavenly secrets, and I would be tested. Therefore, I didn't know this at the time, but I was exposed to heavenly secrets, and I was tested to see if I would reveal them to him. And I drove myself mad. I went a little crazy for a year. I did. But I never, ever turned on my Father. I screamed at the sky. I said, F you. I said, I hate you, but I never turned. I have a rule in my family that no matter what we do, no matter how much we fight, we don't fight in public. We stand as a united front. Because when you start throwing your phone to the wolves in public, your enemies will see that as a weakness and a way to get through to you. So too in the real world as it is in the spirit world. When you fight with your loved ones, the demons that hunt you, and if they don't hunt you, you are not doing something right. If you're doing things right, then best believe you are on Satan's hit list at the top. If your name is in the book of life, best believe it's in the mind of Satan to execute before it can receive before it can be forgotten from the book of life. His goal is to get you out of it, to convince you that hell is some like party, orgy, sex smoking, dope smoking place. That's the most retardedest thing I've ever heard in my life. Perdition is the same story in every religion that we've ever known. An underbelly, underneath world, similar to the one that exists amongst us every day, where we go to the ghetto and shitty ass shit happens when people on drugs and shit. I used to do drugs. I know. I lived there. People just overdose on the street dead. That's a little bit similar to what you're envisioning hell to be. Just suffering and no redemption, no answer. Once you are judged, there is no undoing what you have been found in accordance of. So, all of you that have been possibly gang stalked, I don't know about that. I don't know how to feel about that. But I feel like I've experienced it. But I was also under the influence of chemicals that could have influenced my perception of reality. So I could have hallucinated some of the things. I don't know. All I know is that it stopped. And it only stopped when I put on sunglasses and headphones and stopped ignoring what the reality I believed to be around me was. And no one could see my eyes. No one could see my ears. Or all they knew is I couldn't hear. And it ended within a week. So there's a heads up if you're undergoing gang stalking. But if you've suffered from gang stalking, gaslighting, the aftermath of any kind of elite decision that affected you specifically, which, believe it or not, it happens every day, and every single part of your life is affected by these people. I just want you to know that there's a time soon to come where justice will show itself in its absolute form. Like, you think of justice as the court of law. It's according to man. Where ironically, you're swearing under a Bible, but if you tell that same judge after swearing under that Bible that God told you to do something, he'll find you insane. Ain't that ironic? I find that a little odd to comprehend. That literally you will be found insane in the court of law, but they swear you went under God. You will be found insane if you say that you have been spoken to or did an action due to a delivery order by God. But they make you swear under oath under his name that you'll tell the truth. That's their way of making sure you're telling them the truth. They're not making you swear under the Constitution. They're making you swear under his name. They fear him still. They know who he is. Even the Satanists. I mean, these guys, they don't underestimate the power of God. They just don't believe he's going to come. The thing is I have a surprise to tell you guys. The judge has been here for about 15 years. No one knows who he is. And when he decides to come out of the closet, I've never met him. I've never seen him. I just know. I'm just, put it this way. I've got a little bit of a higher clearance level and intelligence spiritually than most individuals. That's all I'll allude to. Is my clearance level is a little bit higher, so I have access to more information. But it took a long time since I was 12 to develop that clearance, put it that way. And a lot of tests, and a lot of faith, and a lot of loss, and a lot of belief that it would be restored. But you must have a true heart and a good heart, and you must, as a man, conduct yourself as one who would be in accordance to conduct and rule a kingdom. Always remember that. As a man, wake up every day and live your life as though you were an elect, part of a group that were to be chosen, that would one day rule a kingdom. Live your life that way. If you live your life like you were going to become a king, you will find yourself in a very, very, very unique place. You will develop a very neutral and safe place among society. When you do not take sides, it brings you to a safety zone, a Goldilocks zone, so to speak, amongst society. If you don't go too far that way, you're okay. If you don't go too far that way, you're still okay. Too much of God is too much. Too little of God is too little. Too much food is too much. Little food is too little. Everything is best in perfect balance and harmony. And that's judgment. Your judgment is going to be based on what balance and harmony you have brought about, not to yourself, not your actions, but the actions you have caused the other people to relive or experience based on your intent. Your intention is the origin of your action. Your intention begins your action, your mind plays it out, and your body outlives it. Now, I have had such lows to where I have had to ask strangers for change before, unfortunately, and I probably wouldn't usually admit this. I only admit this because I have to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was somewhere in that plan, because again, there's public degradation, which I said was spiritually cleansing. But somewhere in that plan, possibly, maybe, perhaps I sent their path on a different direction. And maybe if you've done the same, you can feel the same way. You've changed lives without knowing it, by changing the after effect and the butterfly effect of the future, by basically just distracting someone for 5 minutes, 2 minutes. You therefore changed the knowledge of history. You've fulfilled God's will through suffering. Remember, it's always through suffering. It's never through glorification. It is harder for a rich man to enter paradise than it is to throw a camel through the eye of a needle. Keep that in mind. And yes, financial stability is very important, but spiritual stability is even more important and even more fulfilling than financial stability. Believe me. When you find yourself in the Spirit, you find the truth, and when you find the truth, you find Christ, and when you find Christ, you find everything. You find God. You find all of it. A couple theories before I go. Why was Peter denying Jesus after his trial took place, but yet John and Mary Magdala were permitted to be underneath of his crucifixion? Why would one disciple be rebuked and cast out? Be so scared that he denies even knowing him, but the other disciple be openly welcome to attend the crucifixion and execution of his rabbi? Well, here's my theory. I think Jesus and John were brothers, and I'll explain why. Mary conceived Jesus as a virgin, yes. But her and Joseph were wed. They were married. So, of course, they were going to make love after Christ was born, and they were going to conceive again. Jesus Christ had many siblings. We know this. The first sibling he received would be a younger brother called John. And I think John just may have inherited a lingering essence of the Holy Spirit in Mary's womb, perhaps. And he inherited a specific and unique trait, just like Christ. When John lived out his days and was captured by the Romans, they tried to kill him by boiling him, by beheading him, by burning him alive. But every time, John would carnate again. He would come and reincarnate, and he would not die. They were terrified at this, and they exiled him to like a colony outside of Greece, I believe. There was like a leprosy colony called Patmos, which translates to purgatory. So, was he assumed? We know that Mary was assumed into heaven. I personally, in my opinion, believe that the first head of the Antichrist came in the form of the name Muhammad. After Muhammad arrived on this earth was when all war began out in religion, in the name of religion. Muhammad was told specifically, if he read the Bible clearly, that anyone who adds to the book, he would be sought, the 12 plagues would be sought to that person, and the wrath of God would fall down upon that person. Muhammad is not what he claims to be. Muhammad is the initiation of war, the equivalent to Ares, the equivalent to someone who seeks out to destroy and fulfillment and receives fulfillment through that destruction and through the sacrificial deaths that come in with it. Now, I'm not casting down what the Muslims believe in. To be honest, I've never even looked at the Quran, so I don't know what they believe in. I know what I've been told. And you can take it on my authority from the higher intelligence that I have access to, that I assure you, Muhammad will not be found in paradise, nor will he be found in perdition. Muhammad simply, when you commit an act so outrageously blasphemous, when you create something that the ripple effect affects the history of the human species, your soul is not just descends or ascends. Your soul is almost atomized in time. And they have places where they'll remind people that this is what will happen to you if you do these things. You just don't know it because you're blind to your surroundings. If you look around you, you will find that God has blessed you in so many ways and you don't even understand or acknowledge it. You have limbs, you move them, you can speak, you can move, you can eat, you have the ability to consume food. You're not hungry, you're not thirsty, you're not starving, you're properly clothed. You can see, you're not blinded. You can write, you can comprehend language. There's a million things that you are blessed with that you look past minutely. What I'm here to prepare you for, and I'm going to make a series of videos, I think, because I think this is what was supposed to happen. And I've been putting this off just out of embarrassment, or I don't know. But I don't even know if this will be getting any attention. I don't have any really TikTok friends or anything. I don't even know where the fuck to put this video. But nevertheless, I'm going to put it out there. When this awakening starts to occur worldwide, which already has begun, it began in 2012 when we collided with Nibiru, which I believe to be like a kind of like in-between place between here and there. There's an awakening happening between half of Earth and the other half, which is fighting for a government one world order. No matter what men does, or what plans or agendas they conceive in their heads, no matter what devious notions they attempt to execute, they will never achieve them. If God chooses to step off of his throne and come down to earth, whether it be in the form of Jesus returning, whether it be in the form of the Archangel Michael, whether it be in the form of the Holy Spirit, every single human being in its wake will know what it has experienced and will be completely altered for eternity. And at that point, to believe in God may be too late. Blessed is he. You see, Thomas, so you believe. I'm quoting Christ. But blessed is he who has seen and yet does not. Blessed is he who has not seen and yet still believes. Blessed is he who has not seen and yet still believes. funny what scars can indicate, can't they? Nothing to me happened spiritually. I didn't undergo any of my scars mysteriously or through stigmata. But as fate would have it, I would undergo certain injuries that would leave me with similar scars to that of what Jesus probably was left with, like my forehead and my head, my hands, my side. A lot of similarities, which I'm honored to bear the same things as him. It's just a reflection of suffering in his same manner. And if I can be anything like his image, just even a glimpse of his shadow, then I'm honored. As I said before, I've never seen God, never heard his voice. What I receive is more like a thought that I believe could not have been conceived by my own thoughts. It was too perfect, an epic, poetic dialogue that it could never have come from my own educational learning experience. I wasn't taught that well. I wasn't taught how to create literature in such a context in which it would stand out so much so that some would even go as far to say, is this plagiary? Is this biblical context you're claiming to be your own? And that's why, and the reasons why I haven't published some of the passages I've written, because I don't want to be, first of all, I don't want no credit for it. I don't ever want to be known. I've written entire notebooks where God has told me, deliver it to that person right there, a stranger in the middle of a parking lot. And I'm like, are you sure? And I'm like, he's like, yes. And when God's sure, he's sure. You don't ask again. And so it's not about whether or not he's going to do it. It's about whether or not you're going to do it. And it does take a little bit of a leap of faith. I trust me, coming from someone who's actually went up to a stranger, giving him a full notebook full of who knows what, because I can't even remember what I wrote down. It wasn't me who wrote it. It was he who above, or the Spirit. That's why I didn't put my name anywhere near that book. I had nothing to do with that. I don't want no credit for that. That's false idolism. That's false prophet shit. No, I'm just the conduit, and I'm honored to be one, but I'm no better than anyone on this earth, not one person. Even the sinners. We're all equal. We're all the same. We all have the entitlement to forgiveness, but it must be given and sought. And it must be given by him who died on the cross and resurrected again. Not by the Holy Spirit, not by the throne of God, but by the Son himself, because it's his right. He earned it. He earned to forgive you. He died because he loves you that much. He saw you right now in present time. When he was hanging on that cross, he could still see you right now. He could see back into the past. He could see into the future. He could see into the present. He was everlasting. He existed outside of space and time. Heaven's energy running off nuclear radiation would explain a lot of things. It would explain why heavenly beings come to humans quickly and fast and they depart in that same nature. It would explain why Jesus told Mary when he first saw her at his tomb, "Do not touch me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father." It would explain a lot of the uncharacteristically unlike Earth characteristics of heaven that seem to exist, but are super separate from our place. They're totally just like one world's another. One is black, one is white, so that would explain its power source, because everything has to have a source of power. Everything has to have a source of energy to run off of. I mean, that's just if you understand anything about living as an environment, even animals have an energy source for whatever inhabitants they occupy. And whether that be based off the Earth's atmosphere or what, they still have a source of energy which they rely upon. And so if heaven's energy was built nuclearly, using chemicals and compounds that we probably couldn't even comprehend, but we can only closely relate them to that which we know to be nuclear, that would mean that heaven would be a safeguarded place. The Van Braun belt outside of Earth would become almost like a backup plan to the firmament in case we were to surpass the firmament. I'm not sure if we have. I'm not sure if there is one. I don't know. It's really hard to tell. There's a lot of good videos online about rockets hitting something at a certain distance in the air, and no crash to the impact, no crash to the rocket, no damage to the rocket, no damage to the camera, just flying straight up at an extremely fast speed. and then just descending down. And someone else brought up a point of I was reading, not one Apollo mission on the way back down when they landed in the sea after going through the burning hot atmosphere, not one of them after splashing in the ocean indicated there was steam around it, stating that there possibly could have been an actual truth to their departure to outer space. But if there was no steam when they hit the water, and I haven't fact checked this, I'm just going based off of this person's account, but I'm going to assume it's true just because I'm like Mulder and I want to believe. If there was no steam that came off of that cargo, as well as a captain calling in just a radio station, I believe like host to host, but I think it was like before George joined, so it was like the time of Art Bell, and he calls in and he's like, hey, I don't believe in any of this stuff. I just fly a commercial pilot. I'm a commercial pilot, but I got to tell you the truth. I saw this type of military grade jet drop a payload over the ocean of what looked to be a replica of the little, space probe returning to Earth, the capsule that holds the people in it. And he goes, I had no idea what I was witnessing until I got home and I realized that the return of the NASA astronauts was occurring in live time, in real time. And that would only mean that there were two conclusions. One, a payload was dropped at the exact coordinate of which the NASA astronauts were supposedly returned at. Or two, there was never any astronaut that went anywhere and the military simply just made it happen. And unfortunately, we live in a society where we are very, very, very easily persuaded by what we're told. You hear 3 news anchors tell you the same information, and guess what? You will never question it again. Matter of fact, you hear one news anchor based on how much you watch it, and you will never question his authenticity. But the truth of the matter is, you don't know who but anyone is, except those within your own circle. You have no idea who lies within you and around you. You could have a serial killer living right next to you. Ask every single person that's ever lived next to one. They had no freaking clue. So trust and believe. You don't know what you know. That's why I told you to forget everything you think you know. And when he comes back, forget what you think he's going to be. You don't know what he's going to be. No one does. That's the point. Those who have come before him, like Jesus, were so radical in their indifference to the normalcy of the religion. There were extreme consequences to their fate. This won't occur again. This time it'll be the extreme consequence to our fate. But it will be as radical as Jesus Christ was to the Hebrews. The return of Christ will be as radical to the Christians. That is truth. That is 100% true, and you can expect and believe that to come. It will probably most likely happen within the next 24 or 12 years. As the archangels develop bodies of humans, they'll circle them and they'll soon develop duality with them. And once the archangels inhabit their bodies, that will be the first step towards this decision on whether or not to revelate the earth, because God does not want to destroy the place that he helped create. Earth is like the wife of God, and she generates your karma just as God does. Your actions are seen by both of them. She is your womb as to he is your father. So why destroy this place and create fire and havoc everywhere? It doesn't really add up, and I think it wasn't translated properly out of Hebrew context on purpose just to confuse you. For instance, there's no vowels in the Hebrew language, so therefore the reader in the synagogue can go to the stage and he can read this passage from the scriptures, and he can read one thing, and you're playing Mad Libs virtually, because the next person that goes up can read the same passage and read a completely different story based on where he inserts the vowels. So if you're going to translate Hebrew, you have to translate like 1,000 different ways, eliminate all the random ones, connect the ones that are similar, and then eliminate those and identify the ones that are identical. And I believe that's where we've, gotten our concept of the Gospels. Most likely there was only one tale told of Jesus, and they just translated it a few times to get the correct concept of the understanding of it. But there was probably only one person writing it down the whole time, and that was probably his little brother John, the one who lived the longest. John and Paul were the ones that really that really dramatically made an impact for Jesus' name, and he was the one that said they would. Jesus and John was Jesus' clearly favorite. John never questioned Christ and anything he did. He fully defended him and stood by him till his death, literally. And not just that they share. And that's why Jesus says, John, on the cross, take this woman as your mother and take care of her. No, he didn't say that. He said, John, take our mother and please watch over her. Take the woman I love and look out for her too. For I believe truthfully, and I've never had confirmation of this from the intelligence source that I have, but I believe there is a lineage leading back to Mary Magdala that has been kept at a very, very, very lower level of secrecy. Like the lowest form of secrecy you could ever possibly comprehend. Not any secret society would find this. No one would find this, because if the DNA of Christ could ever be turned against itself and used like the Shroud of Turin, that scares me, because if there's even a fiber left of his DNA on that thing, scientists now could probably most likely take that, the blood of someone who is highly possessed by a higher level demon, through channeling even higher demons, they could probably even access Lucifer himself, get his blood, mix the two, create a new offspring of something between Christ and Lucifer. And here we have not the Antichrist, but the human-made supernatural being that we don't know. That's just an idea. But I'm saying the endless possibilities of what we're capable of achieving, if we have the right materials to do so, are endless. So it's essential that these people never find the lineage of Christ. You will never see it. You will never find it. But we're out there. They're out there. And that's all I'll say. They're out there. And usually their DNA tests will be the biggest key, especially if there's absolutely no trace of Israelite or Hebrew or anything, any kind of Middle Eastern descent. If there's no trace in your DNA from the Middle East, best believe that's where you may be originally from. Because they have wiped the slate clean with the help of the Holy Host to make sure that the children of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdala were never known, forgotten through history, but they silently changed all of time without anyone knowing. And this would only be revealed and only be told after everything was safe and sound. There was no more threat. Good and evil close. A new kingdom begins. A new story starts, and legends are told. It's just cycles. It's simply cycles. Christ the Son is the Redeemer. He's the giver of forgiveness. God the Father, ultimately, is the King of the universe, the creator of everything, and we have no question to ask him of how he did it. It is not our place. And if we propose the question of how it was done, that's faith being tested in doubt being shown. You simply say to God, thank you for the creation you have built for us, for the inhabitants we have taken part in to live upon was beautiful, and the experience was pleasant, even in the agony. Life is very simple. You can choose to be happy. You can choose to be down. They did an experiment with 15 tennis champions. What was the difference between the 5 who won, the first 5, the top 5 versus the top 15? Well, when one of the top 5 members would lose, I don't know what they call it, like a match or whatever. I play baseball, but I never play tennis. Like a match or they lose like a point. Instead of thinking to themselves, damn it, fuck, they would think, damn, I love this game. I'm so glad I'm here. God, this is fun. They continued on an optimistic path. You know what that resulted in? Slower heart rate, calmer blood flow, slower breathing patterns, which allowed them to operate correctly. If you only could master your own flaw that you're unaware of every day, that I am too, and I'm guilty of everything that I'm trying to teach you. I'm teaching myself, believe, because my life's in shambles. Okay, I'm trying to rebuild my life from a past of 15 years of continuously making mistakes. But I think that may have been the point. To make someone find themselves, you have to get them to their lowest point to break before they break. God knows when you'll truly break and go insane and possibly be suicidal, but He knows what you can endure. So if you can endure it, He's going to send you through it. And if He sends you through it, then you know He's with you for sure. Because if you're going through that bad of a time, you definitely have God on your side, because Satan is making sure you're going to suffer through all of that shit, and he's going to watch it happen. And God's just going to sit with you quietly. And when nobody's looking, He's going to raise you up. And I'll quote Jesus one more time. 2 men went to the temple to pray. Now, Matthew was like a modern day thing of what we see as snitches. You imagine it like a snitch amongst our own people, right? In our city, our own inner circles. That's what Matthew was as a tax collector, okay? He was a snitch to his people. Jesus said, 2 men went to the temple to pray. One, a priest, and one, the snitch and or tax collector. The priest prayed out to God and said, thank you for making me unlike other men. Thank you for making me, blessing me with everything you've given me. And thank you specifically for making me not like this tax collector. But the tax collector couldn't even lift his head to heaven. All he could do was cry his eyes out and silently say, forgive me, Father, for I am a sinner. And at that moment, time was broken. It stood still. And Jesus reached out his hand for the lowest form of filth that society of the Jews knew. And he said, Matthew, come. What would Matthew then do? Matthew would go on to write one of the most famous chapters of our New Testimonial historical Bible, known to us to this day. And for those who doubt the story of Christ, let me just tell you this. I can tell you a lie right now, and I promise you it won't last longer than 3 hours. But the truth, no matter what I do, I cannot stop it from continually being told. The Bible, if it was containing false information, it would have been stomped out like a flame very long ago. They were very, very precise in their storing of the scrolls, the translation of the scrolls, the King James Bible, how it was written. Even though I believe King James did write a book of demonology prior to publishing the Bible, believe it or not, it's actually true. Nevertheless, there's a lot of people that do things that we don't understand, and it's not our place to judge, but it is our place to assess continually assess the situation that you're in, and never take one side or the other. The only side you should take is the one of the Holy One. That's whose side you take. It's whose back you've always got, and your kids and your family. Stick by them because they'll always be there. But to outside religious parties or political parties, to avoid war, to avoid being in the middle of a conflict, you will remain neutral. You will choose no side. A wise man chooses no side and takes no partake in any argument, especially when he does not even simply have an opinion about. Most people just take place in these debates because they find themselves drug in a very small, detailed angle in which they believe in or don't believe in, and then from there they're just pulled in entirely, and that's the whole point. And Elon Musk creating this American Party now only indicates to me that that's just another attempt to create a civil war amongst us, and it may or may not happen depending on the time frame of which the Lord chooses. He wants to identify himself as our judge. But there's either two scenarios at hand right now. As we awaken, we're awakening because we have been judged accordingly, and that is it. It is over, end of sentence. That's why you are awakening, because you were judged. You are allowed to live out your life, and you will ascend into paradise. So once the judgment occurred, your soul released a somewhat like jail-like lock to your mind and comprehension that God kept sealed, because If it wasn't sealed, then the things you did could have been influenced by outside sources. Your actions had to become, if you were possessed or if you were influenced by evil or by evil ones that were unseen, or you partook in like witchcraft that was very dark, it's still forgivable, but it stains your soul. It does stain you to a degree, especially based on the act, like patricide or the slaughter of the innocents, like, you know, taking adrenochrome from a child. You're never gonna find your way back from that. And I will pray for that soul to enter paradise, but I truly, in my biased opinion, I hope he suffers immensely when he finds his afterlife, because these people truly believe that they will find nothing but pure bliss when they die. And if I could just witness one for the Rude Awakening, I would be fulfilled forever. I've been gaslit, followed. I've been attempted to be toyed with. The people on the other side of the lines of our enemies in religion, they know who you are if you're different, if you emit an energy force. I believe that we probably at this point in time have the ability to decipher what someone's energy is radiating based on probably a certain type of binoculars or camera angle or lens. And based on this film, or this, just as simply maybe even just person who is psychically, you know, energetic through sorcery, they can see based on the emitting energy coming from within you. Because what happens is God comes to you, then you emit it back out. It's a duality. It's like breath. When God comes in you, he comes in you only to be spoken back out. He doesn't come in you to just be silent and dormant and just lay there forever and not do anything. He makes you actively pronounce. That's his point. He has an end game that you can't see. It's so vast that it takes centuries to unfold, but it's worth the wait, because in the next life, centuries is like a split second. Like King David probably remembers ruling Israel like I remember Tuesday last week. You know, it's very different, the time frames there and here. But there is a unionization amongst everything in heaven that is so perfectly balanced with itself. And that's my really underlying point here, is that to find truth, harmony, and actual happiness, you must be at balance with the world, with the universe, with the karmic energy you have with the world, with the earth, the planet, with your beliefs, with everything. You must always never be closed-minded, but always open-minded, even to the most ignorant people, because you never know who knows what. You must take in all information as though it is true. Balance it out. Exile and execute the things that you know are false, and find middle ground between what you believe to be the logical explanation, and that's usually where the truth lies. That is the simplicity of knowledge. Unfortunately, knowledge is destined to die alone, where it unfortunately began its life. The same place. It will die in the Garden of Eden where it began, and it will die alone. It will be forsaken and left to rot and never be acknowledged again. Knowledge, if we can comprehend how much it corrupts what in us is God, we would then be want to be so far from it, but we couldn't escape it, because now with the AI and everything, we're just getting closer and closer to infinite knowledge, and that just indicates the Lord is just getting closer and closer to incarnation again. And, you know, whether it does or doesn't happen, I'm not a prophet. I can't tell you the truth of what's going to happen. I can only tell you what I believe has been told to me. And I believe that you are awakening because you have been judged. If you have been judged accordingly, you will awaken in a sense of open and freedom. You will feel freedom and peace, and you will find a way to physically and metaphysically raise your energy frequency, so that you may become immune to the following coming events that will occur. For instance, outside sources will attempt to affect your mind and your body based on electromagnetic frequencies. You will be immune to that if you can raise your frequency. Okay, they say that 100% of humanity would be affected by it if it were to take place. No, that's not true. Not God's people. If you are anointed, if you are baptized, if you are blessed if you are saved in Jesus Christ's name, you will be spared. Believe you me, he will fulfill what he has stated. He is the fulfillment of all prophecy for a time frame of, I think, 30,000 years since the Bible was written. I think it was 33 generations between him and David. Fulfilling every detail of every prophecy ever written about the Messiah, he fulfilled. So everything he said he was going to do, he's going to do if it hasn't been done yet already. Understand that. They're probably trying to develop a way to communicate easier to humans without exposing them to radiation before their death. That's our sacrifice, I see it as. If an angel comes to you, exposes you to radiation, you're blessed because you've been plucked by the billions to be talked to by an angel, be spoken to by an angel of the Lord. At the same time, you're exposed to radiation, damaging your body and the avatar that you live in. And you can say that this is a simulated reality, sure. God created it to live for us to live in. Sure, it's a matrix, whatever. That's just a different way of saying it's real. This is obviously a simulated reality if God created a place for us to live in and then go to another place after. A simulated reality would indicate that there are specific defaults or mistakes that occur consistently throughout reality that would indicate that we're in a programmed state. And that may be how he set it up. I don't know. Who knows? It's the mystery of faith. It must remain unknown to be the mystery of faith and to be the anti-knowledge. The anti-knowledge is the sacredness of us. The less knowledge you have, the closer you are to God. That's why every fallen angel and deity has claimed they will make the sacrifice of either a baby or a virgin. The two beings that are closest to purity that you could ever be. They all want the same thing. They're all the same thing. They're all the fallen angels of the watchers. That through the word of Christ, the belief in them, the prayers of them, and the sacrifices of them all ended. The pagans, they all were hunted down and cast out. Therefore, their gods and their fallen angels were cast out as well. Their belief was what powered them. Our belief gave them life. Just like I think that our belief in God helps give him existence. The day that everyone on earth does not pray to Jesus, the day that everyone on earth refuses to acknowledge that there is a God, we're in trouble. In every way, a prayer to the Lord is just as beneficial for the Lord as it is to you. Everything is balance. Understand that. You are on a swinging state, and all you have to do is slowly guide yourself to a middle ground, where you can sit still and enjoy your surroundings instead of swinging from side to side and never seeing it. It's very simple. And I'm going to make a few more videos. I don't know if this will get any views. I don't know where this will go. I honestly don't. I'm probably going to make a TikTok account and against my better judgment, put my fucking name on the video and publish it, and it'll probably get no views, but maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is that what I have told you today, believe that I believe it is the truth. So if you have awakened, you have been judged. If you have not awakened yet, you feel, you may be awaiting judgment, or you may have been surpassed upon it. Meaning that, unfortunately, my friend, what's done is done. These people, these elite, I find it hilarious that they keep continually trying to attempt to develop underground places where they can survive through cataclysmic events, because there's nothing that's going to allow them to survive when the judgment comes, the final judgment, the execution of all souls in the rapture, where all of us are gone and few are left behind to rot, like just rotten fruits left at this foot of a tree that's dead. When the elite try to survive, it will be like watching a fish try to climb its way out of water and breathe air successfully. It will be that belittling to that person, to that mighty person of society. But to you, someone who is meek, someone who is without riches and without materialistic fulfillment. But to you, when you're judged and you enter paradise, it will be like a baby coming out of the mother's womb and reliving life completely new. As you know life as it is, as in the womb, while in the womb, as you know life as it is here on earth, as too do you know heaven living life on earth here. You understand what I'm saying? While you're in the womb as an infant, the comprehension that you can obtain of the life that you will live on earth is equivalent to the comprehension you will obtain of the afterlife while living here on earth. It is the exact same thing. The exact same thing. This is the womb for the afterlife. Everything is a mirroring image of itself. Everything. Just like how Noah, God got angry and destroyed all of men with water, only to have the descendant of Abraham come and walk into those same waters and insist that his cousin submerge him fully in that same water that killed all of mankind, that did them in forever, raise them back above it, and call this a baptism and the new birth of life, then therefore giving spiritual life and birth again after and instead of dying within the water, mirroring the mistake that the Old Testimonial God judgmentally made, where Jesus, out of love, recreated this scenario and played it out accordingly. Like Saul hunted David till the end of his days, and died in the process of it, along with Jonathan, and it broke David's heart, because David did love Saul and Jonathan more than anything. And as fate would have it, his brother would be named John, and his most known disciple, despite it being after his death, would be called Paul. But his name started out as Saul, and Jesus was known as the son of David. So let's replay the story of David. Saul hunts David to the ends of the earth because he's jealous of his kingdom to come, right? He's scared. God has forsaken Saul. Now, I think that was where God went wrong. Saul made one mistake. Saul was a good man and a good king, and he made one mistake. I don't think he should have been forsaken in the way he was, but it was meant to be for David to rule. For David did set in motion, which would come out about some of the greatest times the Israelites had ever known in history. David achieved some of the most, miraculous achievements as a king, as a warrior, as a outlaw on the run while Saul pursued him. I mean, he would find Saul twice in the desert as he was being hunted, get so close to him that he could cut a piece of his cloth off, get back a little far away enough to where Saul couldn't hurt him, and say, Saul, I was this close to you. I have a piece of your robe in my hand. I cut it off of you while you were not paying attention. You were pissing. If I wanted to take your life, I could have easily done it. But when the throne becomes mine, I will never stomp out your name. Your name will live on forever, and I will make sure your ancestors will all live glorious lives. I swear to this, that you do this. God had told David himself to kill Saul. David refused and said, that's God's anointed. I won't touch him. You anointed him. I will not harm him. And he was also like a father to David. David didn't have an actual real father, but Jesse. And Jesse was just, there as a way of God's way of, just utilizing what people's genetics can create or are plausible of creating and placing them together, even if they don't match up. And the outcome tends to usually be beautiful. I found that out of destructive things on this earth are born. I had a vision once where out of everything that was the most evil, destructive act that you could imagine, the undoing of it became the birth of something beautiful. So beautiful that it was like unearthly. And out of that came something even more beautiful. And out of that, again and again, all beginning with one horrific evil. And when I say evil, I mean like like a satanic level evil incident being undone by sacrifice, meaning that the not sacrifice to the devil, sacrificing oneself to undo the sacrifice to the devil. Now, it was a bizarre vision I had, but this girl was, there's a legend where I come from that this person killed his girlfriend who was pregnant. And I was told by by the higher intelligence I am in communication with, the spirit of this woman was not sacrificed, she was crushed. It was the first soul that was ever crushed in a long time in sacrifice. She was crushed. Now, in this vision that I had, I was in immense withdrawal from benzodiazepines. And if you know anything about that, what that means is that you're going to go into a very hallucinogenic and very bizarre state of mind, because all of the dull reality around you becomes very realistically, almost impossibly realistically true and real and too vivid. So it's hard to differentiate your sleeping dreams from your reality, because your reality is still a dream. It's really bizarre. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But unfortunately, I've been through a lot, and I do take Klonopin as an outlet of anxiety treatment, because I do have post-traumatic stress disorder in a very malevolent way, and luckily I have the medication as an outlet as well as God. But like I said, I am in recovery from addiction. I am sober. So with that said, that's a win. But it's not like AA or NA. I don't agree with that shit. I was once an addict. That's done. I'm never gonna be one again. I'm over that shit. So that's not even what I'm gonna talk about. It's not important. But what was I saying about what I saw? So this guy supposedly had killed his girlfriend in these woods and sacrificed her, and her soul was crushed, not sacrificed, in the process. He didn't understand that. And in my vision, I explained to him the process of what had happened in her body. Her corpse was wrapped up in the roots of a tree that was dead. And I remember, now this was all behind my eyelids, or excuse me, this was all behind my eyes while they were open, while I was awake during the day, keep in mind. But I was just so mentally checked out that I was not present in this plane, at least. And I don't know if I had a dream or a vision or what it was, but and me and this guy don't really even get along. The guy who supposedly did this all this shit, I care less for this guy. He's not really a friend of mine or anything. But I did eventually tell him about this story, because it did have such a pivotal impact on my opinion of, just everything. And so, upon me in this vision telling him that her soul was crushed because she was pregnant with their unborn child, he chose in a final act to give his life to spare hers to live again. And in doing so, the union between his death and her resurrection from death, that interacting force became an open, bright light, and a force came through in a shape of like a diamond or like a crystal. And it was, in my vision, it identified itself as the god I have named Isis. It was a woman-like goddess who thanked me and was willing to give me anything for freeing her for she was condemned to eternal confinement. So when she was freed, broke through her was also two more beings who were freed, and these beings were like, they spoke with accents. They were more like Nordic beings, and they originated from elements. The elements were like key to like who they would be as adults, or who they would grow into, or what kind of person they would represent as, like, as far as like a race. For instance, like the color of a certain element would lead them to grow to be a dirt dwelling people. Another color of an element or type of element would lead them to be a sea dwelling people. And this would continue between two beings, and I would only hear these two beings speaking through what I believe to be this being who came through this disgusting destruction, desolate place where this dead tree was, and this light broke through with this rising crystal through it. And through this came this being, and she wasn't evil or anti-heavenly at all. It wasn't. I didn't get that feeling at all. I think it was more symbolic than anything. Like perhaps it was just like an ancient like just mystical like being that we're not even just aware of. That just it's not an enemy of faith. It's not an enemy of evil. It's its own entity in itself. Kind of like a Merlin or something. And nevertheless, I remember her name was Isis. She emitted such a bright light in a crystal that would grow and then split into another crystal. All the while, I could see the story of my life that I never lived unfolding, but every thing that I had ever done in my past had connected back to have a purpose, and I could see it then. And I could only desire in my wildest dreams that would happen at the end of my life, that I could see that happen in real time. Because in the dream or the vision, it was profound to see all of these things that had taken place in this life I had lived, in this vision I was having unfold and connect in such specific and like unthinkable ways that you couldn't even. I don't know how a dream conceives of these specifically detailed topics. It was so, the details were so little and insignificant that it's like, why do they even exist? It was just like, I still debate on whether or not it was an experience or a vision or a dream. I don't know. I'll never know. But the point of the matter is from what I believe is when there is something evil that happens, it doesn't create unhallowed ground unless you think or believe that. You believe that there is ground that is unholy, guess what? It's going to be unholy. The only people that I really believe that can cause some true massive energy forces on Earth is the Native Americans, because they know this land better than anyone, and they were fucked better. They're fucked more than anyone in history. No nation on Earth has ever been fucked like the Native American culture. They were fucked over worse than anyone, and their ability to confide in their elders and to be proud of who they are has prevented them from demanding justice being given. Because we're a society that gives justice to the ones who were persecuted and the minorities, right? Well, if transgenders can, take a piss if a guy can take a piss in a woman's bathroom, how in the fuck is a Native American bound to only a reservation and not the land he was born on, and his ancestors were born on, and their ancestors were born on, and their ancestors were born on? So yes, do I believe their beliefs exist? Yes. Why? Because God separated us from this land specifically and intentionally. He had no intention on us ever interacting. Therefore, their beliefs were never going to be part of our beliefs. If they separately believe in a being's of an earthly origin, that's fine, because the earthly origin is truth. You have a mother; she is called Earth, and you can identify it in many ways. There are many different mythological or mystical or symbolic ways that you can communicate or identify this with. Okay, because like I said, Earth is a very mystical place. It's a place where bizarre things occur, bizarre coordinates, bizarre ley lines play out in coincidental in numerology. It's just, there's a very specific bizarre order to the way we live, and the patterns on Earth that begin to show if you start to look at them closely enough. And I just want to say lastly that when you feel you have been awakened, rejoice, because you have been judged accordingly and you have been welcomed into the afterlife. But you have your life to continue. You aren't going to be slaughtered like an animal. God will let you live out your life. Satan no longer is in control. The elite, you will see them lose everything that they have ever hidden. Their exposure will come slowly. It will leak. It will be just continually somewhat of the same type of ordeals in the media, but spiritually inside we change, we shift. Time begins to shift. And as time begins to shift, God will take more into action, because if there are multiple identical realities occurring parallel to each other, I have to believe that our God is aware of both of them, but only in control of one of them, whereas the other one was a spawn of a precourse in the past that caused a new timeline to exist. As I said, you can possibly change the past because it's happening now, but the future, based on decisions, you couldn't get there because our decisions haven't happened yet. Therefore, the future hasn't occurred. Once the decision is made and the choice is made, and you make your mind up and you go in a certain direction, then you can find the future that you want to see. So you can plausibly foresee the future. But do I believe you could get there? Maybe, but it would be a variable of a decision. So then you would have to, and you have to suggest that place that you've traveled to there is just it's like a river. You have a river flowing in one direction, right? It's time. You can branch that river off into different directions, but ultimately it's all going to the same source of water. So you can have different futuristically individual experiences if you claim to have traveled time. But ultimately, in the end, if you were to all experience it till the end, which the end will come, maybe at different times, but it will all happen in the same exact fashion. We cannot avoid the destiny that is designed to happen. Our free will was given to us for one reason, so that we could believe and think inside ourselves and not be private. So when you pray, I'll reminding you again, say it out loud. Speak what you want out loud. Say what you want out loud to the universe so that you may manifest it into creation. If you think it, it's going to stay right inside there. Nothing can see in there unless you let something in to possess you, like an angel or a demon for that matter. You don't have to necessarily let demons, and demons will take charge and come in if they can find a way in. But that's only really if you believe that they can get in. Like my mother, for instance, she's a devout Catholic, but throughout her whole life we've had, paranormal events happen. Like there could be a plate levitate, crash in the middle of thin air, slamming against the wall. My mom will just sweep it up like nothing ever happened. I'm like, Mom, what the fuck? Did you just see that? What the fuck? And that's simply because my mom won't acknowledge the existence of evil. And I think that that's a very similar trait of what Mother Mary, had inside of her heart. And that's why she was chosen, is because she just simply did not see evil. Evil did not exist around her. And in the end, if it comes to a war, that's our nuclear weapon. The mother, the woman is the key, not the man, not the son or the father. The mother would step on and destroy the snake if it comes to that, which it won't, because ultimately the goal is to redeem all creation, no matter the cost. And I believe that because Christ came and redeemed all humanity, no matter the cost. So why would anything else not apply? With that said, I hope you have a blessed day. Nothing will be held against you if you don't listen to the words or believe the words I say to you. I'm in every way equivalent to you. But if there's the slightest chance I am to make it into your heart and you believe in anything I have said to you, blessed are you who hear me, and you will be rewarded. I don't know how, but you will be. For your faith is sensationally openable to opinion. And being openable to opinion makes you extremely it makes you extremely wise in a very short amount of time. Open-mindedness, considering logic, and finding the balance equals wisdom. Wisdom equals understanding. Understanding eliminates eliminates knowledge. When knowledge is eliminated, belief will be to its fullest extent. And when belief comes to its fullest extent, anything happens. Anything can happen. You have no idea what you can create. Your God particle inside you, the thing that makes you exactly like your creator, is your ability to create. So, with that said, I hope you have a blessed day and thank you for listening.